Hi, I'm Sarah Dorr. I'm with ISA and I'm based at the University of Connecticut in Global Affairs. Today I'm here with Leah Windsor, and she's going to be talking about starting a campus mentorship network. And given the importance of mentorship and how much difference it can make in someone's academic career and trajectory, this is just a really important topic. And I hope we start to see mentorship networks kind of branches and flower and take off across different universities. So Leah, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen here. So this is an N of one about starting a mentorship network. I'm just going to tell the story about how I got started and what the path has been and end with some of the lessons learned. And then I would love to field questions and problem solve and just hear, what folks are wanting to do at their universities. So I'm Leah Windsor. I am an associate professor of applied linguistics in the Institute for Intelligent Systems in the Department of English at the University of Memphis. I have served as the program chair and president of ISA Midwest. I currently serve on the executive committee and nominations committee and professional rights and responsibilities committees in Big ISA. And I'm active in the Women's Caucus and foreign policy analysis. So ISA is really my intellectual and professional home. So I'm really invested in helping folks in our network start mentorship groups. So a little bit about me. I'm not a first gen student, but definitely not clued in to the hidden curriculum. My dad was first gen on his side. My mom was not, but I don't come from a long academic lineage. And my parents are not in academia. My family is not in academia. So, a lot of the mentorship needs that I have tried to meet in my own university have also been needs that I needed met in my own career. So, I was really late to let's see here. Oh, hi. I was really late to the academic game. I had, other careers before I started my PhD in 2008. I graduated from undergrad in 1998 in linguistics. I was a later in life parent. I had my children at 37 and 39. And so really all of the family formation, early career, challenges, just kind of came, hard and fast all at the same time. Really two key mentorship conferences that I attended early in my academic career. One was in the last year of my PhD program. That was Journeys in World Politics. That was run out of the University of Iowa for a very long time. Kelly Cadera and Sarah Mitchell founded that. That's where I met my favorite co-author, Carrie Crawford, who is chair of the political science department at James Madison University. She and I wrote the PhD Parenthood Trap and published that in 2021. In 2013, I attended Visions and Methodology. And if you're interested, the Visions and Methodology deadline is upcoming February 28th. So there's still time to submit proposals for this year's VIM conference for methodologists. Let's see here. Okay. So I'm going to start out with the need. So I had a very non-linear path to tenure. I spent 4 years in a non-tenure track position. I spent 4 years after that as research staff at the same university. And then for the last 2.5 years, I have been in a tenured position. when I started, there was no formalized universal mentorship network at the university. But certainly, the need was there. I started the Women's Plus Mentorship Network really out of enlightened self-interest, to meet my own needs, but also to help the campus community. And, I knew that there were other people that probably had the same questions and challenges that I did. So it started with about 10 people in 2019 in the fall, and it's grown to over 400 faculty, staff, and students from all campus locations, departments, and units. So it's been a really, it's had very steady growth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the trajectory here. Okay, so the beginnings. If you want to read our story, I can share this article. We just had this published the end of last semester through the University of New Mexico Mentoring Institute. So that gives kind of the whole story. So in fall 2019, I started the group. It's just a small group of women who were kind of in my general area, computational, cognitive, and neurosocial sciences. And the idea was to create a group that could support women plus faculty with career questions, career progression questions, methodological questions, because maybe there's somebody in the College of Education that, has questions about Bayesian statistics that somebody in the math department could help with, right? So making, professional connections, but also like practical computational kind of, or methodological connections too. And then also to be able to workshop research ideas and make connections across campus. So in the first few months, I raised about $500 from different deans and departments just to be able to provide refreshments. And also we had planned to do a small mini conference in the spring of 2020, which got derailed. And it started out really informally, just monthly meetups, fairly unstructured conversations. I was always very concerned that I didn't want it to be the Leah show, right? That I did not want to center myself with this. And so, or impose, a structure on the group. And so, for the first couple of semesters, especially because of the pandemic, we just grew in baby steps, right? Little steps. Okay, so then kind of the middle years, in spring 2020, the pandemic happened. We pivoted all of our meetings online. We'd only had maybe 3 or 4 in-person meetings. We renamed the group to be the Women's Plus Mentorship Networks. We started weekly writing groups online. I had never done that before. I don't know how it's done everywhere else, but the way we do it is there's just a Zoom room. Several people can host it or start it. When people log in, we just chat in the sidebar what we're going to do for that hour, or now it's moved to 2 hours this semester. But you can stay for however long you need, drop in, drop out, from just as your schedule permits. And then when you leave, just for accountability, people usually say, this is what I accomplished. Good to see everybody. And when we just sit there with the cameras off and, muted. And so it's working independently together. And so that has been going on. That's been kind of the consistent thread for the last few years. Fall 2020, we continued with the virtual meetings and the monthly meetups. The monthly meetups were really just about checking in in the spring of 2020. In the fall of 2020, we started to have a little bit more, in spring 2021, started to have more structured meetings. So having a particular topic, like, pivoting to online teaching or best practices in online teaching or challenges in online teaching or work-life balance, working remotely and having children at home. And so we kept the weekly writing groups going. We applied for some internal funding and then got it. Spring 2021 was a bit of a blur. We kept up the weekly writing groups, continued just gradual professionalization. We got $2,500 in internal funding, which we used to hire a graduate student to help us with some research on how other campus mentorship networks were formed. And so this is a bit about that. So we did a study of campus mentorship networks that were qualitative surveys and interviews. And our questions were just very general, like what do other campus mentorship networks look like? How did they start? How did they work? And so what we learned is that they tend to have 3 different paths to formation. The first is that some are started top down by administrators, where service roles are imposed on faculty and it's top down. Then there's the bottom up, which is started and led by faculty. And these types of groups tended to be a little bit more antagonistic, maybe, or like problematizing campus relationships, I think. And then there was the way that we did it, which was started by faculty, but in collaboration with administrators. So one of the things that I did early on was to email my dean, to email other deans, to email other people across campus, other chairs or directors or unit heads, and say, hey, I'm starting this group. Just want to let you know if you have any ideas or if faculty in your departments or your units would be interested in participating, please, share this with them. And so from early on, it was like, it started bottom up, but it also incorporated existing university structures. And so I think the win-win of this is that when things are started top down, faculty described feeling more imposed or put upon, especially women plus and people with intersectional identities who already serve on a lot of committees, just felt like this was yet another thing that they had to do. The bottom up, like I said, was more antagonistic. And so there wasn't the collaboration with administrators. It was more an us versus them kind of dynamic. And I'm not saying any of these are right or wrong, but I think that what has helped in the longevity and the receptivity and the usefulness and the integration of the Women's Plus Mentorship Network across campus is that we're doing this the third way, right? And so there's a lot of input from constituencies at all levels across campus. Okay, so why does the middle way work? It's faculty led, but also administrator supported. It has broad support vertically and horizontally, and buy-in from a broad constituency. One of the things that we did kind of during this middle phase formation during the pandemic was to get a logo. So we worked with marketing and communications on campus. And so this is our official Women's Plus Mentorship Network logo. So the professionalization phase between fall 2021 and now, fall 2021, we started inviting more guest speakers. We got a website, which I'll show you in just a second. We really clarified our vision and mission and goals, which we're going to revisit because as I'll talk about, the group has really ballooned in the last year or so. We got more funding. We did a book club, which my colleague and I facilitated together. We did 3 months of book clubs and 4 book clubs each month, and that was just a lot to facilitate ourselves. We had like, I don't know, lots and lots of people across campus involved in the book club. So we just gradually professionalized. Spring and fall of 2022, we put together an advisory board. I also started something called an expertise database, which really went back to one of the core goals I had, was to be able to make connections across campus. And so I describe it as a centralized, decentralized resource. So you can input your information, like what do you research? What are your needs? What do you have to contribute? And so it's just a database. So if I am looking for someone who's studying climate change, I can go query the database and see like who has listed climate change in their keywords, right? There's a need a mentor or I want to be a mentor. So if you're looking for someone to mentor you, you can look and see who across campus, because sometimes, right, in our departments, there's nobody that can serve as a good mentor for us. And so, you know, and sometimes it's just good to have an outside perspective. You know, the mentorship diversification, you know, I don't think it's reasonable to think that we can get all of our needs met from one particular mentor. And so using this expertise database to help people be able to find others, whether it's for a research collaboration or a particular skill set they need or something that they want to learn, or if they want to find a mentor or be a mentor. So in spring 2023, we brought on a couple more people for the leadership. It was just me and another colleague for several years. And so we brought on 2 more people from the university. We had our first advisory board meeting. And then this past fall, my colleague presented the paper about the formation of this group at the University of New Mexico Mentoring Conference. I also did things like, you know, we've got Canva through our marketing and communication. So I got a Canva account through them. So we can make our own flyers that would get approved by marketing and communications, just in a more streamlined kind of way, so that we can have the, you know, official university logo on there and just be more kind of connected throughout the campus. This is an example of before we used the Canva, but one of our fall 2022 workshops, we had Brenna Brashears give a talk on trauma and healing. Not just for faculty, but there were a lot of concerns about our students, you know, during the pandemic. And so how do we help meet our students where they're at? We also got our website. So if you go to memphis.edu/mentorship, you can read about us. You can see the programming that we've done, who all is involved, the expertise database. You have to be, you have to have a memphis.edu email address to see that. So it's only internal to people at the university. But then we've got a list also of just external resources for people. We've done workshops on grant writing. We did a 10-week series last fall that I raised $6,000 for from all across campus to train 26 brand new principal investigators, people who had never written a grant before, and got them connected with mentors. So we had, you know, more than 50 people in this 10-week workshop last year, many of whom have gotten grants successfully funded since then. So we're kind of in a well, I'm in a transition phase with this. I've stepped back from my role as director to an advisory board member, in thinking and studying international organizations and just organizational development. I think it's really important to consider what role long-term you want to play. I don't want to have founder syndrome, right? I've never wanted this to be the Leah show. And so, before I stepped back, we had started having conversations with the provost's office, and there's going to be a formal partnership with the provost's office. We've just kind of existed in, the ether. We haven't been under any department, but because this is, really campus wide, it makes sense to have it under the provost's office. But one of the things we found when we did the survey was that we're unique in that this group is open to not only faculty, but also staff and students. Now, granted, we've not done an excellent job doing outreach, especially to the students, because there's a lot of mentoring connections already on campus. Also, we've been in the middle of a pandemic for much of this. But I presented at the staff senate last fall. And so we're really trying to make this as inclusive as possible. We're renaming the group because we've had a lot of men who have wanted to join. And so we're probably going to have a women's caucus within the mentorship network. But what we've really realized is that men need mentorship too. And so, so much mentorship in political science, international relations in general, broadly, even beyond our own discipline, is by women for women. And there's a space for that, but we also have to mentor people where they're at as well. We really hope to make more connections, like through new faculty orientation. We've started reaching out and co-sponsoring other events on campus, like with the Engaged Scholarship Network, with the Women's and Gender Studies. So offering to co-sponsor and asking other people to co-sponsor events with us, just to formalize these kind of collaborations. So my lessons learned from this. Start small and grow steady. Find allies and get early adopter support. Find easy early wins. I think it's better to have small wins than like big challenges, right? Define your goals. Use technology to your advantage. We got a listserv. We got our website. So, really just leveraging whatever campus resources you have. Partner with existing groups on campus. And, if you're starting it yourself, do the things that meet your needs, right? One of the things that, because I write a lot of grants, individual people kept coming to me saying, can you teach me how to write a grant? Can you teach me how to write a grant? And I never wanted to say no, but it wasn't efficient for me just to do little one-off things. And so first I started just a 1-credit class that people could take on grant writing. So there's like an economy of scale with that. And then we did this 10-week workshop last summer. So I don't know if that necessarily meets my needs, but certainly when I'm considering programming, it's informed by the things that I'm thinking about and, kind of taking the pulse of what's going on campus. And then finding early, easy funding sources. If there's a really good time is right before the end of the fiscal year to go knock on doors and sending emails, because people may have things in their budget that they can't carry forward to the next academic year. And so if you have something that you want to fund, like a workshop or lunches or, a small mini conference or just, coffee for a meetup, I was able to cobble together the $6,000 from like 10 different places across campus. And so there's there may not be one huge pot of money, but there might be lots of little pots of money that you can use. So you have to be creative. That's not sustainable long-term and it's not efficient, but it also helps to establish your track record too, and to show that you can work with the budget and that you have deliverables and that you have outcomes. Okay, so are you ready to get started Campus Mentorship Network? That's what I've got here. Let's see here. So
People, attendees, you can put questions in the chat. I can unmute you if you raise your hand, if you have anything, any comments for Leah. Two things spring to my mind, Leah. First of all, I love the logo. I
oh,
just think it's really illustrative. I
yeah.
like the arms, and I see that there's also a man in the logo.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings me to my second point. I really like that your group has grown and expanded to include men as well, because I don't think it can be done
Yeah,
independently,
right.
right? It can't only be done with 50% of the population. So I think that's
Yeah.
really key.
Yeah. And still creating spaces because, you
Mhm.
know, women still have unique concerns and perspectives, but making it inclusive for everyone.
Mhm. Definitely. So I see a first question in the chat. How
Okay.
did you go about searching for the grants? How long did it take?
Um, so that's hard. Um, we have not been very successful with external funding. I think in part because the deck is a little bit stacked against us. There's been a lot of internal funding, but so for example, the NSF has the advance grants, but they're for women in STEM,
Mhm.
right? Um, I always joke that the E in STEM really is English, right? Um, and because the humanities and the social sciences are just really left out. And so that's way above my pay grade, right? Dealing with the priorities of, you know, national funding agencies. So, um, you know, we've thought about conference grants. Um, there's, you know, between the ISA and APSA, there's a lot of different association grants. We've also, one of the metaphors that I've used is that we've been building the airplane while we're flying it. And so I think that's probably been reflected in our grant narratives. We might be in a better position now to apply for a grant because things are a lot more coalesced. But you know, I don't know how to go about changing the obsession with STEM, right? Like it just leaves out um, so many people in academia. Um, and I mean, I guess the upside is that um, all of the focus on women in STEM is working, you know, like we're seeing so many more women in science and engineering and the physical sciences. Um, so we need to have more concerted conversations with funding agencies about broadening their scope for who they're willing to fund. I haven't done a lot with private foundations, but one of the things that I did do was to meet with the Office of University Advancement and look at alumni and other donors to the university whose own personal interests are in supporting mentorship. So there's a lot of different potential paths. And we're, you know, we're trying all of them. We've partnered with, one of my colleagues got an advanced grant, and so we have partnered with them as well. But there's way more focus on mentorship in the STEM fields than in social sciences and humanities. And that's a problem.
So I see that this question actually came from someone in molecular and cell biology. So maybe
Oh.
the advanced grant might fit
Yeah,
that
exactly.
field.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, maybe we start getting the folks who fall more naturally into the STEM fields to partner with social sciences and humanities people, um, to drive policy change from the inside out, right? So to pursue an advanced grant, reach out to the social sciences and the humanities, because there's a lot of women who are dealing with very similar issues in non-STEM fields.
oh, and she wrote, "Thank you. I agree. Absolutely." I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I see it.
So are there any other questions for Leah on things that she mentioned or on the first steps to take? I find that I think the expertise network that you mentioned is really interesting. Um, but it's internal, right? You said it's internal.
It is internal. I mean, it's modeled after Women Also Know Stuff,
Mhm.
um, which I think was started by political scientists. I think
I
it's,
think so.
yeah. And I know that there are other permutations um, of the Also Know Stuff variety. Um, yeah, this is just internal facing connections. But I mean, I think that the Women Also Know Stuff has, I don't know what kind of metrics or um analysis um of their database, like how many people appear in news items or things like that, or get contacted for interviews or whatnot. So um yeah, I mean and that's what I mean, like use technology to your advantage, right? Like this is not a hard thing to do. Um, I see Pallavi also has a question. How did you form your first group? How did you get the group together to meet and discuss? So really, it was just people that I knew probably wouldn't say no to me um, initially. And also other people that kind of knew me on campus. And it was small. We started with like maybe 10 or so people. Um, and we would just get together. I reserved a room in our building or in the library. I'd bring snacks or coffee. And I wasn't really sure what to do or how to start it. And so, most people, I was always kind of this center point, or um the center of the spokes. And so because I do a lot of interdisciplinary work. And so a lot of times it's just like the round table introduction was like, how do we all know Leah? And so just getting people to meet each other and talk about what they're doing, or um asking questions of the group like, hey, I have this situation, what would you do? Or a colleague came to me with this issue or this question, what advice do you have for them? Um, it was just very unstructured, um, at least initially, and now it is much more structured. We do sometimes have socials, but I don't know if anybody else has found this, but post-pandemic, people sign up for things and then don't come. And I do it all the time, right? Like I have the best intentions. Um, but it's just, I think we're all still quite overstimulated since the pandemic. So I think the unstructured time is really nice. But we haven't done that as much too, so.
I was actually going to ask how about the pandemic and how if there was a change in participation pre-pandemic, or was there greater participation even virtually during the pandemic and now? So I think that that would be interesting to hear a little bit about.
It has consistently grown. People would consistently show up during the pandemic. We would get 20 or 30 people at the monthly meetups. And especially the ones like the example that I gave with Brenna Brashears, we ended up inviting her to our department to give a lunch and learn talk.
Mhm.
And so we haven't had any ebbs and flows, right? Like it's just continually crescendoed.
That's
But
great.
also, one of the things that I hope will happen is that we continue to specialize and professionalize more so that we have, maybe a committee on outreach or a women's caucus. And we also take a, get in where you fit in approach too, that, people have different availabilities at different places in their lives. And so, if somebody gets a big grant and that kind of takes over their time, they don't have as much time for the mentorship network, but it's always here, Um, so yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's great. And I don't know if you could share the link in the chat
Oh, sure. For
for
the
the
website.
website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That's really interesting. And I just think it makes such a difference with being able to have someone to ask questions. And it's often helpful to be able to turn to someone outside of your immediate department and see how they might handle a situation. And that's what I really like about how your network is interdisciplinary, and it has staff, right? It has
Yes.
staff and it has students, so that's really cool.
And that's been something too that, I don't know how it works at other universities, but there are a lot of informal staff networks at our university. And there's some people that are like the repositories of knowledge, right? Like if you need to know something about XYZ, you go to this person, right? And so being able to connect people, and there've been like informal mini mentorship networks. We have this position called pre-award coordinators that do like the front end grant support for faculty. Um, and those staff members have kind of self-organized together. And a lot of them started out in the mentorship network. And so it's just kind of been a nice spin-off that's
Mhm.
met their needs, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and again, it provides another basis of knowledge because I know a
Yes.
few people like that where they're, they're the archive. Like they know they
Yes.
have the institutional, like the history of how things were done, when it changed, and that's
Where the
really
bodies are buried.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Leah, so much. This was really interesting. It's given me a couple of ideas. Um,
Good.
and I really appreciate you sharing your trajectory, how how you got to where you are now, and because that's a mentoring lesson in itself, how these things can work. So I really appreciate it. Um,
Yeah.
And I see a lot of positive feedback in the chat. Thank you.
Oh,
So yeah, so everybody that attended, we will follow up. We will send you the recording. We will send you the slides from today, so you will have those as resources.
awesome. Thank you so much for making this possible, Sarah and ISA. And thank you everyone for taking some time out of your morning or whatever time it is where you are, learn about building a mentorship network.
All right, thank you, Leah, and see you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.